Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third session that we are hosting between AREP and Eskom. Can someone just quickly indicate for me, maybe with a hand up or a thumbs up, that everyone can hear me? Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. That was a quick response. Okay. So the Eskom team is here with us today, Laura and her team, but we are also very excited that Dr. Johan Beukes is going to be speaking to us about some of the technicalities surrounding what constitutes a grid-tied system. But before we get to that, let's just quickly go through what we're planning for the meeting. So it is the third time that we're meeting as a group. That means that we have up till now covered quite a few different topics, quite a few different questions. If you are still, if we do not cover something today that you still have a question about, there is a very good chance that we might have covered it in one of the previous meetings. But Laura and I have also spoken, and they have committed to giving us a frequently asked questions compilation. So we've sent to her all of the questions that we had in the chat boxes over the past two meetings. I will share with her all of the questions that come in today as well. And then they're going to compile a document with written out questions and answers for everything that might still be bugging you. But that said, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end of this meeting where you are also welcome to raise your hand and post a question. You can post your questions in the Q&A part of the webinar as well. Please use that part and not the chat box so that we can see all of the questions together. You're welcome to do that now. If you have questions you want to post so long, we will go first come, first serve basis. We'll just start from the top and take it from there. So just a quick reminder of the meeting rules. We want to give Eskom an opportunity to complete their presentation before we open the floor for questions. Dr. Johan Beukes will do his presentation, and then he has other commitments, so he will not be able to stay the entire hour and a half, unfortunately, but he will be able to clarify a lot of the technical questions that we have had up to this point. And then also, we just want to remind you that no anonymous questions, please. Please make sure that you use your name and give your name and surname. And then also, please just address everyone with respect during the webinar. If you do get a little emotional, I'm going to have to mute your mic and ask you to calm down before we go ahead. All right, so that's all from my side. I'm going to give over to Dr. Johan Beukes, who is with Eskom. Laura, can you maybe just confirm that he is in the meeting, because I do not actually see his name yet.
Let me just double check. I also don't see him in the meeting. Let me just give him a call.
Sipo, could I ask you, while we are trying to get Dr. Johan into the room, could you systematically go through some of the questions that's already been posted in the Q&A so that we don't waste the time that we do have available? I'm just finding your name quickly. Yeah, I would really appreciate it if you can maybe just start with those questions systematically, and then we will do the presentation as soon as we can. So I can read them to you if that's easier. So the first one is, what is the minimum size of SSEG that must be approved by a professional engineer?
Thank you. There is no minimum or maximum. All the SSEGs must be approved by the engineers. There's no stipulated minimum. So all the SSEGs must be approved by the engineer. So yeah, as long as it's a grid-tied system, it must be approved by the engineer. Thank you.
All right. And then what constitutes as a grid-tied system is exactly what we're waiting for clarity on from Dr. Beukes. So we will get that answer from him. The next question is, off-grid inverters like must and codec, etc. What is happening with those installs, especially if they are installed quite a few years ago? So what must they do with inverter systems?
Yeah, I think that one we must also leave it to Johan.
Okay, cool. We can do that. I'll mark him. We'll mark it as such. All right. Then, okay, here's a long one. I just want to double check. Laura, are you guys winning before I go to the next question? No, nothing yet. All right, that's fine. So let's go to the next question. I received a document from a customer where an Eskom worker declared our installation unauthorized. He then went further advising the customer how to register the system as off-grid by means of a changeover, and I could only assume no inverter input supply. Last week, we defined off-grid as no Eskom cable once supply is available. I'm going to think that this is probably a Dr. Johan question as well, Sipho.
Yes, yeah, I think that's Dr. Johan is in a better position to answer that one.
Okay, I'm going to leave that one then. So we'll leave that one there. We're going to leave that one there. Okay, next one. Please kindly share the list of improved inverters.
Yeah, look, we don't endorse any technology or brand, so we are not allowed to actually, yeah, stipulate or prescribe any particular brand. So Eskom is staying away from endorsing any brand or technology. We just stipulate the specification, but as to which one the customer or the engineer is using, we leave it to the customer to choose.
All right. Do you have documents on your what you do stipulate, Sipho? The specification.
We did share the NRS standard
Oh, okay.
document. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So there is a list of approved inverters that the City of Cape Town has made available that is acceptable by that municipality, but that is not the same list that applies to Eskom. So as Sipho has confirmed, they do not have a list of approved inverters. Laura. Okay, Laura's hand was up. Apparently, she does not want to say something. Okay, great. Let's see the next one. Okay, it says, I have mailed the Eskom people on email that they provided the last time. I still haven't received any feedback. Is there anyone else who can assist with applications?
Yeah, look, we need information. Which email did he use?
Suzette, I'm going to quickly,
yeah.
let's see. Suzette, I'm going to quickly unmute. I'm going to open your mic. I'm just trying to find you. There you are. So Suzette, you're welcome to quickly speak to Sipho if you want to.
Marisha, it's Laura. If you could
Yes.
just confirm, Dr. Johan Beukes had indicated that he is available. He did join, so I've asked him just to raise his hand so that we can then proceed. Thank you.
Okay, let me see. Oh, there you are. Great. Okay, Suzette, sorry, I'm just gonna give, let's do the presentation and then we'll get right back to the questions at the end, all right? Sorry about that. I just want to go back. I just saw his name. There we go. Perfect. All right, Dr. Johan, are you with us? Not yet, apparently. At least we have the name in the chat box, so that's good. Yes, Laura.
It seems as though, Marisha, we're having a few technical issues because every time I'm having to log in, Marisha, I would propose while we're waiting for Dr. Johan Beukes, the questions that we had from session 2 that we then also go through. And then when Dr. Johan Beukes joins, just to reiterate in terms of his responses regarding the grid-related questions, the remainder of those questions would then be referred to Sipho, Celeste, or myself. Thank you.
Okay, can you let me just check. Celeste, is that with a C, Laura? Because I don't know whose mic to open.
S-I-L-E-S-H. Celeste.
Yes.
I-L-E-S-H. Celeste.
Huh. I don't see that name. Do you see that name?
But we can proceed then.
Okay. All right. So yours and Sipho's mics are open. Let me know if someone else's. Yeah. All right. So let's continue with the questions that we had. So Suzette, you were about to ask Sipho about your submission. He just wanted to confirm which email address did you use when you submitted your. Oh, your mic doesn't work, you're saying. That's weird because it's open on my side. I've clicked again to say ask to unmute. But you're welcome to type your comment. If you just want to type what email address you used, then Sipho can get back to you about the correct email address and the correct procedure. Dr. Beukes, if you can hear me, feel free to interrupt us at any point when your mic starts working. Laura, the same. All right, I'll try to keep an eye out for any raised hands or something from you guys. Then let's quickly go to the next question. As soon as we've done with the questions that are in the Q&A at the moment, and there's no more questions, I will open up the questions to what was asked in the previous session. Let's just honor the guys that are actually present in the meeting and answer their questions first. Cool. So then we have, can we get the last session recording, please? I couldn't manage to join. I'm sorry that you couldn't join. The recording is available on the AREP YouTube channel. I will try to get the link as we're talking and post it in the chat box. All right. So I'll put it in response to your question so that everyone has access to that. The next question is, must a totally off-grid system without any Eskom line, must it be registered? Sipho, did you want to answer that, or did you want to also wait for Dr. Johan to clarify?
Sorry, if you can please repeat the question.
So the question is, must a totally off-grid system without any Eskom line be registered?
Yeah, if you are an Eskom customer, you need to declare it. In our first session, we did actually indicate what is an off-grid system. So if your system meets those requirements that we actually went through and actually stipulated in our first presentation, yeah, you can go ahead and ask for the declaration form so that we keep a record of your system.
Yes, so just to add to that, it must be declared with Eskom. That is a requirement from NASA coming down that we have to get a record of all of the systems. So even if yours completely off-grid, you need to put in a declaration. Sipho, I can't remember that you guys sent the declaration form. I have the application form. Can you make the declaration form available to us?
Look, we prefer the customer to come forward and ask for it. And then because sometimes a technician would want to, or our colleagues from network engineering department would like to first go and do an inspection before actually so we prefer that the customer inquire first, then our colleagues from NED will decide whether they want to go and verify on site or not. So we don't share it upfront.
All right. And then I see on that same question, Skalk has just asked, how do they inquire?
You just send an email to say you have got an off-grid system and you want to declare it. The same email address that you use when you make an application for SSEG.
Okay, perfect. Then we have a question that says, what certifications must the engineer have?
I don't understand.
Join Discovery Bank. Sorry, trying to get the link to the video. Dr. Beukes, was that you? Oh, maybe not. I thought maybe that little sound we heard was from your mic. Okay, so Sipho, I think he's asking in terms of the Pr.Eng that need to sign off with the letter, what certifications must they have to be able to sign off?
An engineer who's registered with EXA.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice and simple. Okay, then Charles is also just asking Eskom versus municipal connection. So maybe I can just answer that briefly. If you have an Eskom account, then you are an Eskom client, and then all of this applies. If you have a municipal account, you are not an Eskom client, and this does not apply to you, and you will have to adhere to your municipal bylaws. All of the municipalities have different bylaws in terms of the SSEG systems. AREP is currently working on compiling a contacts list for all of the SSEG contact people in every municipality in South Africa. We're actually almost done. We've been phoning every single municipality trying to get the right person and the right email address to talk to in terms of SSEG registrations and questions in every municipality. So we will be publishing that soon and make it available. Laura, I see your hand is raised. Did you want to say something?
Marisha, Laura, I've had to connect Dr. Beukes via MS Teams. He's able to listen, but he's unable to, I think his audio, there seems to be an issue with, his audibility on your side. So I've connected him. So when you are available, he will then speak via MS Teams through my device. Thank you.
Through your device. Okay, so he can go. Is it through your, so I just leave your mic open and he can talk?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Go for it.
Dr. Beukes?
Yeah. What's a question? So, specific questions. Can you hear me?
Maybe just for formality, if you could then just introduce yourself, and then Marisha will then raise the questions that were asked, and then you will be in a position to respond.
Yeah, so my responsibilities in the NRS specifications. So I can answer questions related to the NRS 097-2-1 and 2-3. I'll try to answer that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Beukes. We really appreciate you making time for this. So I think the main question, there was a bit of a discrepancy that arose after we had the big meeting with Eskom and all of the practitioners sat in, and we were trying to define what exactly constitutes a grid-tied system, what are the technicalities around that. And then apparently in another meeting, another industry meeting, I think it was with Sapvia, then there was a different definition. So we just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear on what technically constitutes a grid-tied system and the technicalities around that. Can you give us maybe like a broad answer there?
Yes, you can also read NRS 097-2-1, where we define parallel operation. So grid-tied inverter is any inverter that can operate in parallel with the network. So that means there's the main supply, there's a load, and then there's another energy source or power source that runs in parallel with the main supply. Whenever you switch over from one supply to another supply, it's a alternative supply, and as defined by SANS 10142-1. And if you have only alternative supply or a embedded generator, then it's basically an off-grid system.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think that's a very good place to start. I think so we have two questions in the chat box at the moment that also relates to this. Sipho said that he thinks it's best if we leave it for you to answer. So the first one is off-grid inverters like Must and Kodak, etc. What is happening with those installations, especially if they were installed years ago?
Those inverters are all versions of the Voltronics inverters. Those are not certified as grid-tied inverters, although they can operate in parallel with the grid, so they don't meet the specifications of the NRS specifications because they're not. If you look at the data sheets, and there's basically no certifications available, and there's certain safety aspects that make those the level of protection of those inverters are not adequate to be installed on our grid. There's no way you can make it compliant. The best way is to remove it and install it in our SO97-2-1 compliant inverter. It also it's not UPS because it also doesn't meet the SANS standard on UPSs. It is merely an off-grid inverter that can operate in parallel. That should not be operated in parallel with our grids.
Okay. Also on inverters, we have a question that was in the previous session that asked, does NRS 097 exclude hybrid inverters with an internal isolation mechanism?
Yes, we make provision for the hybrid inverters. So a hybrid inverter can form an intentional island on the load side. So it can switch over. When it's not forming an intentional island on the load side, it's hanging in parallel with the grid. It's also a grid-tied inverter. So it's an off-grid and a grid-tied inverter, well, combined in one assembly, basically. And you still need to meet the SANS NRS 097-1 requirements because it has that functionality of operating in parallel with the grid. So everything that has the capability of running in parallel with the grid needs to meet the NRS requirements. That refers to several IEC and SANS standards.
Okay, cool. Then we have one more question relating to the NRS. So it says, how does alternative supply, example, diesel generations, off-grid inverters, fit into NRS 097 versus SANS 10142?
So NRS specifies the utility interface. So it describes the performance and the safety aspects of the inverters up to 1 megawatt that is connected to utilities in South Africa, to our grid and to the municipality grids. So we don't define anything else in NRS 097. We don't define switch alternative supplies or off-grid standalone inverters. The specification is written by the utilities to characterize the utility interface. There are other SANS standards applicable for everything else. But we are concerned about the safety and the performance of our grid. So we cover grid code aspects in terms of performance of the inverters and focusing on safety of the grid, personnel on the grid, and that's why we only allow certified inverters because there's redundant safety aspects built into the inverters. That is very important for us.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so now here's a bit of a long question. I'm going to read it and then we'll see. I received a document from a customer where an Eskom worker declared our installation unauthorized. He then went further, advising the customer how to register the system as off-grid by means of a changeover, and I can only assume no inverter input supply. Last week, we defined off-grid as no Eskom cable. Once supply is available, even with a changeover, it is an SSEG. Carl explained that within Eskom there are various departments, and I understand that, but can we have this definition then in writing, as it was only verbally communicated where the other one was an official SSEG authorized connection document?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand the question. So if there's a signed EGI report and it went through the process and it's a legal Eskom installation, I'm not sure if I understand it. So what's it? Yeah, can you just repeat the basic question?
Yeah, I think the basic question he is asking is for a very concise, written down confirmation of how we define an off-grid system and a grid-tied or a hybrid system, so that they can give it to their clients as proof.
So, yeah, so if you look at the switch alternative supply, you need to look at the definitions in SANS 10142-1. We, from Eskom side, if it's not connected to our grid, we're not concerned about that. It's a SABS and installation SANS 10142-1 issue. We just write specifications for what is safe when connected to our grid. So I cannot comment on anything else. If you want to connect to the Eskom grid, you need to meet the Eskom requirements. If you stand alone, and our SANS defined switch alternatives is it's a break before make mechanical switch. It's a changeover switch. And that's how SANS defined that. Everything else that can run in parallel with the grid and it's not certified, we won't take responsibility for such installation.
Okay. Do you know what? I'm just going to quickly open Skalk's mic. Skalk, would you maybe phrase your question? Because I see that you're making additional comments there. So maybe it's just more efficient if you just quickly ask what it is that you're wondering about.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. What I'm trying to say, Dr. Beukes, thank you for your time, is what you guys are saying and what you guys are writing is in direct contradiction to each other. I'm sitting here and all I'm telling my customers is this is what they say, this is what they say. But then they stick a document in my hand, clearly on an Eskom letterhead, stating the exact opposite of what we're saying in these meetings. So I'm asking, how does that work?
Skalk, maybe could you maybe give me that document?
Put this in writing because unfortunately, Eskom is big. I'm not sure what. It's the first time that I'm at this meeting, so I'm telling you what I know, how and where I'm involved. I'm involved with NRS 097, setting up the specifications. If there's another message from another department in Eskom, please write it down. Who said what, so that we can at least get some clarity on it. I'm not.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Beukes. Carl advised me exactly the same. He said there's various departments. This is a new thing, and we will get to the bottom of it. I'm just trying to resolve this query, but I completely understand what you refer to. Thank you, Doctor.
Great, thank you.
Laura?
Yes, Laura.
Yeah, my apologies. I would then propose that we obtain the full question and we have reference made to a particular document. So before our next session, we can then respond, and we will involve Dr. Johan Beukes. So we're able to identify and we can speak into the document that at this point we don't have sight of. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm just going to put the email addresses that are available in that as an answer to that question, Skalk, and then you can send it to us and we will take it from there. All right, let's go to the next open question. All right, we did cover that one. Engineer we covered, municipal connection we covered. All right, who approves the Chinese hardware being imported, or can consumers install any SSG hardware? I do not think we have a local accreditation agent. I don't think that one is specifically for Dr. Johan, so I'm just going to skip that one, Mark. Let's just see. Here's another NRS 097 question. So, as NRS 097 and Eskom SSG are essentially informed by each other, please provide the electrical reasoning that informs the regulation that the NRP, the nameplate rating of active AC power on the load side, the consumer reticulation, may not be more than 100% of the UIC, utility installed capacity. Did that make sense, or should I maybe just put Kevin, let's maybe open Kevin's mic.
So what's the question? Which part don't you understand? So it's, yeah, that's correct. But what's being said is correct.
Yeah.
So it's a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Kevin, go for it.
Yes, no, the statement is correct. As per NRS 097, currently, if you are on, let's give you an example, if we understand it correctly, on a 63 amp URC main switch, if you, for example, had two 8 kilowatt SunSyncs there for redundancy reasons, if you go through this process, you're going to be asked to say, well, chop one in half or take one down, because they are now at 80 amps, 40 amps plus 40 amps equals 80 amps. It does not equal 63 amps. Your regulation states that you may only install on the load side 63 amps on a 63 amp URC. What is the electrical reasoning?
NRS 097-2-3 specify the limits. It was much less, if you remember right.
The previous limits had to do with export. So it had to do with export. They didn't actually define that. It had to do with a 25% export capacity. We've now got 25% export capacity, MEC, but your document, or whoever wrote this document, is still saying to us that on our load side, for whatever our clients' reasons are, we cannot have redundancy, we need to match your utility installed capacity. I'm asking you for the electrical reasoning, please.
There are many reasons. We want to make sure that we have control over what is installed. So in -2, -3, we are conservative. When we set up those limits, we look at the voltage rise across. I know you're talking about UIC, but when we look at the site and we see there's quite a lot of planning aspects involved. So we looked, in terms of the UIC, we looked at the voltage rise across feeder, and we also take into account that how many people will install these things there.
Sorry, you can deal with voltage rise in any other number of ways.
Feeders are designed with ADMD values and we traditionally design feeders as load customers only. When we started looking at installing now generation where you basically lose your diversity, that means that when the sun shines in the middle of the day, everybody will export maximum. So we set conservative limits. You must remember 2-3 is just a simplified procedure. You can it is just something that we created so that we can allow us to fast track installations. There should be a parallel process where if you don't meet the requirements of the simplified procedure, you can do a detailed study. Come back to your electrical aspects. when we don't only talk about 50 hertz power, there are power quality aspects. If you look at harmonics, for example, that's just example. There are many other aspects, but even if you limit your 50 hertz to the UIC limit, there's other things that's also impacting the grid. For example, the harmonics. So as soon as you have more than one inverter in parallel, the harmonic content will obviously be double that, and we do. For SSEGs, we don't require a grid code compliance assessment. Everything is intended to make it simpler, to only look at what the inverters are certified against. If you look at EMC and everything else, everything impacts the grid. But it's a long story. I can give you a tutorial on only that. So it's a thought through thing. It might change in future, but at this stage we're not sure. We don't have, if somebody has double the capacity installed, we don't have control over installing additional capacity in terms of the PV, and there are many things that we're taking into account when we decided this. It might in future, we might increase it in future. At this stage, we are conservative, but there is an alternative. But there are electrical reasons, and it's not only the 50 hertz active power thing that you need to look at. You need to look at many other aspects. Look at the grid code and see what they define in terms of harmonic content and things like that.
Kevin, did you want to add something to that, or did you get your answer?
No. Well, I got an answer in a way that it's about control. We're not really sure. Are we exporting or not? When are we actually harmonics matter? If we don't have any interest in exporting, if we can prove that we can export it, why are we trying to police things we cannot police that are completely uncontrollable, as per the second question? Because actually, if we were really worried about NRS and everybody pumping too much energy into the grid, which is what you require for a voltage rise, etc., then you'd be only too happy to throttle us down to 40 amps and we can install 80 amps, because there's a whole bunch of switchgear in between the parallel connection and the grid, which already can be improved, but it already exists. So no, I don't think that's an answer.
All right, I think your question is going a little bit beyond the scope of the purpose of this meeting. I think it is still valid and it is something that we should engage with. Maybe we can talk to, in a separate meeting, we can talk to the guys. I would encourage you to maybe reach out directly to Eskom and maybe have a separate conversation. But let's try to get the technical questions answered, which is the purpose of this meeting. So thanks so much for raising your question. Let's go on to the next one. So we have a question that says, if you have your Eskom utility supply on a changeover and not supplying power to grid-tied inverter, is it still seen as a grid-tied system, as no power can be pushed into the grid? Eskom Power can only supply property directly when changeover was changed. And the 25% of your supply, are we bound to this to register?
So I don't. So what's your question?
Okay, so asking, if you have your Eskom utility supply on a changeover system and not supplying power to the grid, and not supplying power to grid-tied inverter, it's still seen as a grid-tied system.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's a switch. That's a switch alternative. It's not a grid-tied inverter.
So to clarify, that does not need to be registered?
I can only comment on NRS 097-2-1, and it doesn't make provision for switch alternatives. If there is Eskom processes in place that we need to register it, I'm not sure. But it doesn't. It's not covered by NRS 097-2-1 because it doesn't operate in parallel with the grid.
All right, Sipho and Laura, can you clarify?
Can you please repeat the question? I'm sorry, I didn't get, I don't want just to answer for the sake of answering.
Okay, so Harold has asked that if you have your Eskom utility supply on a changeover and not supplying power to grid-tied inverter, is it still seen as a grid-tied system? So Dr. Beukes has just confirmed that no, that does not fall under the NRS guidelines. So does that, if it's not under NRS, does it still need to be registered with Eskom?
So is the inverter with no solar panels? So just a full description of the system. Solar panels, inverter, and the batteries. If I can have a full description of the system.
Okay, Harold, I've opened your mic. You're welcome to take it from here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, what I'm saying on that question is I do have a grid-tied inverter, but I don't supply my inverter with the grid. What we do, we use the grid, the utility grid, we supply that to a changeover switch, and we take our inverter and we supply that to the changeover switch. Even though my inverter does have power from PV, I cannot feed back because I'm not connected on my input onto the grid. Is it still seen as a grid-tied system?
Okay, so in case of the overcast, how do you charge your batteries? If
Through the
there's
PV.
overcast?
Through the PV, but the PV can only charge my battery and feed the property, the load. It cannot feed back. It cannot feed back onto the input.
Okay, my question is, if there is not enough sunshine, how do you charge your batteries?
Through the sun, but what we will do is we will do the changeover switch. We will switch onto Eskom mode. So the house will then, the load will then be driven by Eskom, and the inverter will use the PV to charge the battery. It cannot use utility to charge the battery because it does not have a utility link.
Okay, so if you don't have enough sunshine, your batteries remain empty. You don't charge them. Like if it's seriously,
you can have it. Yeah. You can have a generator connected to the inverter as well if you need to charge the batteries.
Yeah, you still make like the same way you do with an off-grid system. You notify Eskom, then our colleagues from network engineering might want to come on site and verify what you are saying. So you notify us through the email and indicate that your system is on a changeover switch.
Okay.
Thank you. That's great. All right, let me just check. So Zanel, your comment on Harold's question, when a system is not synchronized. All right, I'm just going to skip that part for now and just go on to the next question. Let me see if I can see another grid-tied question. I don't. If anyone still has a question specifically for Dr. Beukes, why don't you just raise your hand? I see a lot of questions, but I don't see specifically something that's going to be that asking for Dr. Beukes. Okay, I am going to, here we go. So, Nakjavani, I hope I did not butcher your name, but I just opened your mic. You're welcome to ask a question. Giving him a moment to unmute.
Thank you. Okay, I think I'm on mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my question was directly to Doctor. Maybe if they could clarify, because previous meeting, that was the same question that we asked. If a solar system is basically operating off-grid. It's not connected to any Eskom supplier, and it does the charging and the supplying. And then there's a Eskom line, which is on a changeover switch, which you can still change back to Eskom, or you change back to your solar system. So if the doctor maybe could clarify, because that way I think there's a discrepancy on what is an off-grid system and what is a grid-tied system according to the SSG document that we read last time.
Don't know if we could. There
Yeah,
you go.
so when you have an electromechanical changeover switch, it's a switch alternative supply, and I sure if everyone in Eskom treat it like that. I'll have to find out, but that is how it's defined. Then it's not a grid-tied inverter; it's a switch alternative. What I can do is I can find out how the people in the field in Eskom treat this. So there might be a confusion, but this is how it should be. It should be either an off-grid switch alternative or a grid-tied inverter, and we are concerned about the grid-tied inverters that operate in parallel with the grid. So you have both supplies on the load at the same time.
Yes, thank you for the, okay, we'll wait, I think, for that response, because that was mostly a bit of the confusion in terms of off-grid system and grid-tied system. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, great. So Zanel's comment was about NRS 097-2-1 exactly. I think it's along the same parameters. So there is a little bit confusion regarding whether these systems that we've been discussing needs to be, whether Eskom sees that and treats that in practice as a grid tie. So maybe Sipho and Laura, if you guys can make work of getting us an answer for that and maybe getting back to us about that, that would be great, because it seems to be the predominant question that guys have. All right, I'm going to, let's see, Mark, you had raised your hand for a question for Dr. Beukes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Marisha, Laura, let me just reconnect Doctor.
Okay.
He's just disconnected because I've connected him on Teams on my phone. And just to note, he's got another meeting at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Let me just
so we have
connect
3
him.
minutes.
Yeah.
Connected.
I don't think yet. I think, yeah, no, not yet. Sorry, Mark. Just give them a moment.
Marisha, Doctor is on the line and he needs to connect at 2 o'clock to another meeting. So over to the doctor. Please, you can speak.
Hi, Doc. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Doc, I'm not sure how relevant this question is, but being part of NRS and Eskom, can you perhaps give me an opinion? City of Cape Town published a policy document, and where they are the service provider, they've simply written that they consider all inverters, other than these little macro trolley inverters, to be SSEG and must comply with NRS 097. And we have been in communication with them now for 2 years, and it doesn't appear that that is budging. And I would just like to know from the NRS side, I mean, surely if something doesn't comply with the specification, you can't simply label it as something that is considered, you know, to be part of that specification when it's in fact a UPS system.
Yeah, I think I'm aware of what City of Cape Town does. That's it. One specific municipality that did it like that. And I remember they had reasons for that. I'm not sure how to answer this because I cannot really go against how they do it. It is not really a grid-type inverter, but they obviously have reasons why they want to treat it like that. They see SSEG as everything. From an NRS perspective, we only look at grid-type. So I'm not 100% sure why they do it like that. I'm aware of that. I'll try to talk to them again and just give a good reason at the next meeting, perhaps, why they do it like that. And I guess it's to do with the policing of installations and where people just switch over to on-grid after they applied for an off-grid installation, something like that. So it's very easy to install inverter that can go on grid, and you install your PV and you have a changeover switch, and after registering it with the municipality, just switch over to on grid. So it's probably something to have control over the installations in that specific municipality. It's probably why they apply it like that. But I'll talk to them again and just I'll try to give a better reason next time.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Can I then just ask another question following up on 097? There seems to be a lot of product coming in which in theory does or doesn't comply but has a certificate. Is there anything that Eskom is planning to say, well, if you're bringing in whatever, inverter ABC from China or America or wherever you're bringing it in from, for it to comply with 097, a local test house like whatever, the SABS or must actually issue a certification? Because what I'm seeing is products which come into us for repair, which clearly do not comply at all, but they're certified.
Yeah, I'm also becoming aware of that. It seems that there are inverters that might not comply. What City of Cape Town does, they've got a database with the compliance reports, and what Eskom does is when we approve installation, we want that the installer must give us that certificate. But I agree 100% with that need. And it obviously become apparent recently with the failures that we need some control over what we install and the testing facility. We've talked a lot about that, and in the past we need to start running tests on inverters and make sure they do comply. It's something that's not in place at the moment, but it is a very good suggestion. And the SABS is also involved, so I think we definitely need more control over what we import into this country and make sure that perhaps identify credible testing houses for certification, or something like that. But you're right, you're 100% right. We need to start testing locally as well.
Okay, Doc, right. Thanks very much. I know you have to go. It's really, I believe it's crucial that when there's a specification that one must adhere to in our modern world, if there isn't a certified test house or accreditation facility for that specification, then it becomes a completely pointless exercise, because I can tell you that at least 30% of what I've seen and tested are products that definitely don't comply with the specification.
All right. Thank you, Mark, for raising your concern. All right. We just want to thank Dr. Beukes. It is now past 2. Sorry for keeping you for a little bit longer. So I'm going to assume that he's left the meeting. and we're going to go on to the different questions. So Sipho and Laura, if you guys between your team can then please help us answer the questions as we go from here. We still have about 25 minutes of time left in this meeting. So I see that there are still 33 questions in the chat box that we haven't gotten to. We're going to spend the next 25 minutes trying to work through all of these questions. Laura, you rose your hand.
Marisha, can I request that we refer to the second session as well? Because we've got those questions that we've also prepared to respond to from session 2 that we haven't been through. And I would plead, that we then record like how we did in the second session, the remainder of the questions that we then respond to. Because we're dealing with the current,
cool. So
and we haven't been to.
Yeah, so we did manage to cover a few of those with Dr. Beukes, but I'm looking at the second session's questions. Did you guys have a presentation that you wanted to share on them, or do you want me to just read them to you and then you answer them?
We will formally respond in a presentation, but I thought if you could read them, go through them, and then, or maybe just even flight it on the meetings for all parties to view, and then read it out, and then we then respond accordingly. And then like how we did earlier, with the session 2, where you then record the remaining questions that we have not been able to respond on this forum due to time, and then we then also respond formally. Thank you.
Okay. Do you know what, Laura? I'm a little bit in two because the people asking questions in the Q&A are actually in the meeting and they're waiting for their answers. So I'm going to prioritize the questions that are from the guys live in the meeting. And then we can get to the second session's questions. I'm pretty sure we're going to be covering them anyway, as some of the same questions are being asked today. So let me just prioritize these guys and respect their time. And then we will get to the second sessions if there is time left. All right, so Kevin, I see we did speak about your question and there wasn't really an answer to that. So maybe we should make some email addresses available so that you can contact the guys directly. We can have an offline conversation as well about the issue that you raised, but it's not really relevant to the people in this meeting today and for the purpose of this meeting. So I'm just going to mark that one as not answered yet. And then let's see, there's a new question. Currently, there is a moratorium on SSEG applications in the Northern Cape region due to grid capacity constraints. Is there a way to contact and discuss with Eskom engineers other hybrid technologies that are grid tied but will not add to grid capacity risks? Sipho or Laura, could you take that question for us?
Okay, what we can do is, let me get an understanding of the province in terms of where this query relates to, and then I will respond a lot more confidently based on that provincial question, because it's posed to a specific province. If we could defer the response to next week so that I can also engage with my colleagues in that environment.
Okay, great. I think the best would be to actually email Laura that question as well. I'm going to put it on the list that we're going to be sharing with Eskom anyway, but you can make direct contact with the via the email addresses that we have shared already to just make sure that you get your answer for the Northern Cape region. All right, next question. Eskom client that is part of a sectional title scheme is near the Oeverstrand municipality and he wants to register their grid-tied PV system within the estate. What documentation is required to register this specific system? We only have a meter number from the client.
Marisha, Laura, you've got the email, the contact details. We can work with an account number. So I would propose that contact is made as per the contact list that we've provided, and we will attend to it. Short of that, you can also send it directly to SIPO and myself, and we will ensure that it reaches the correct environment for a response.
All right. Sipho and Laura, you can check on the Q&A on the answered section. You'll see that that question came from Warren. I've posted your email addresses. Would you please help us by just posting the other email addresses that you have made available previously to the guys in the meeting right now? You can just quickly paste it in a comment to them. Then it is available to them as we're speaking. Let's see, we have another question here. When will Eskom issue the new tariff book for 2025-2026? Laura and Sipho, did you hear that? When will
Yes,
Eskom?
I have.
Okay.
We've just gone through some, in terms of received a response from NERSA regarding the tariffs that we've proposed. In terms of publishing dates, I don't have that offhand yet, but I will be in a position to respond on the published dates of the approved tariffs. So I will record it as part of my response in preparation for our next meeting.
Okay, thank you so much. Kevin, I'm going to assume that your question that you posted, the next one in line, is also specifically for Dr. Beukes, given the SSEG have been installed for 20 years plus. Yeah, I think that would be, I don't think we would have the technical expertise to answer it here. So Carl is asking, if no, what options will old clients have that are non-compliant? Does this relate to a previous question, Carl? Let me just quickly unmute you, and then maybe you can just tell us what your question is, if you still have one, unless that's been answered through all of the conversations up to this point.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Thank you very much. I'll simplify it because I think a lot of people want to know the answer. So there's a lot of people that have installed inverters in the past umpteen years, and now everybody has to register, and a lot of people want to do it the right way, and they want to comply, and they want to know when they go to bed at night that they can sleep. But we're sitting with a lot of inverters that are installed that are non-compliant, according to what Johan has told us, and I agree with him and I understand. And then we've also got a lot of inverters that have been sold in the load shedding, how can I say, peak, that were compliant and were on the Cape Town list, that have recently been found to be non-compliant and have been removed from the list, and they are no longer NRS compliant, even though certificates were issued when the stuff was bought. So we're sitting with a lot of customers that need a solution to fix the problem. And one of the solutions I had, there's another question I asked there, if we could use a NRS compliant relay in line on the grid side to be able to control it and stay compliant, because it measures harmonics, it measures high voltage, low voltage, it measures the current, so you can set it and you can switch off a contactor so that you're not affecting the grid negatively in any way. And the people that supply these relays have issued us with NRS 097 compliance certificates that they comply with NRS. So that is one solution that somebody could possibly use to solve a problem of inverter that's become non-compliant, because there's a lot of inverters, lots, that were compliant and now non-compliant. A lot of people that bought that didn't know whether they were compliant or not, because it was more of a marketing thing than really checking the regs. Just want to know, what options do we have? Do we have to remove those inverters and replace them with a compliant inverter, or are there other options that these clients have? Because the question is definitely going to be asked right across the board. So that's in simple really what I'd like to know, if anybody can help.
Okay, can I come in, Laura?
Please proceed.
Okay. So if I may ask, these inverters, I mean, the customers, did they apply for the SSEG before? And well, if I may, I just want to.
The customers want to start applying, and some of them are municipal customers, some of them are Eskom customers.
Okay.
But
No.
I know
Okay.
that these units are not compliant.
Okay.
Just
All
like
right.
some of the other guys have said, they're finding a lot of non-compliant units installed at houses, and the people want to register the systems, but the
Okay.
equipment is not compliant.
Okay. No, normally what happens if the inverter is not compliant, or if the customer cannot produce NRS 097 certificate, we would actually tell the customer to install the switch, the GTL, yeah, the dead grid switch, because yeah, so the normally that's part. Yeah, normally, yeah. When you make an application, the technician will go on site and do the investigation, and based on what they've established or the information that they've collected on site, then they'll be able to determine the scope of work. So if they pick up that actually the inverter is not is the customer cannot produce the NRS 097 certificate, then they will prescribe or put it in the scope of work that the customer must put the switch, the isolator. But whatever that need to be done is gonna be part and parcel of the scope of work that will be compiled by
What I
the
want to try and
technician.
determine is we want to get it all working properly for the customer before we even put the application in, so that there's not a up and down. We don't want your technicians to come in and out and write reports. We don't want to waste time. We want to know this is what you can do if you have this problem, so that we can install the correct equipment, make sure it's certified correctly, so when the technicians come, they can sign it off, pass it, and it's done. We want to avoid the time wasting of going up and down. So we want to know what equipment can we fit in line to solve the problem, because there are hundreds of thousands, not 10, hundreds of thousands of non-compliant systems.
Yeah, look, I've never been on site, and actually I'm wary to just tell you upfront because we never been on site. But like I'm telling you right now, if the inverter is not compliant to NRS 097, and I mean normally the technician will actually prescribe that the isolator be installed. But now I don't want just to rubber stamp it, because what if
I appreciate that. What I want to know is what's the make and model of that isolator. Because you can install one and then they'll tell you this one doesn't comply. Does it have to just be SANS 10142 compliant?
Yes.
I understand that we need to put in a NRS compliant switch. So that's really what I want to know. And I want to try and take away the gray areas so people can make the right decisions. That's really what I'm looking for. To give you an idea, I don't want to really mention brands, but SunSync is a very well-known brand. A lot of people bought SunSync. It was NRS compliant when the people bought it. Now they've withdrawn the NRS compliance on SunSync for reasons I'm not sure. And now you've got thousands of customers that bought it with an NRS certificate, but that certificate's no longer valid. We're looking for a solution to help these type of people. GrowWatt had the same problem with some of their models. The certificates were removed. So we need to know these things. All the equipment was approved and then disapproved a year later. So we must find a solution around this. And if there is no solution, then we need to tell the customers you have to replace the equipment, but we don't want them to go and spend money replacing the equipment if there is another solution.
Yeah, look, in terms of the brand, we don't endorse any brand. So the guide is the NRS 097. That's the guide. So we are not allowed to actually
I understand that.
tell you which brand to buy. And again, we are wary of actually giving you the full details to say the customer must do 1, 2, 3. What I'm saying now is a guide, but still the technicians still need to come on site, and based on the investigation, they will give a precise scope of work. So I can only give you the guide for now.
Okay.
Have you got a guide in writing, Sipho?
No, it's exactly what I've just told you, that if
Have you got it in written, a document, a PDF or something we can download, or that you can mail us or make available? Because we want to give those guides to the people that are asking the questions.
yeah, look, I don't know how else to answer, but yeah. The thing
Colin,
is,
let me just come in there. Let me make a suggestion. So Cole's question is valid. There are a lot of systems with products, inverters that are not compliant because of the change of the standards and because of various things, because maybe they were never compliant to begin with. But we need to be able to offer them some kind of solution. So in the spirit of something like a frequently asked questions, or some kind of just a basic guideline of what you can do if you suspect that your system is not compliant, could Eskom maybe just put out some piece of paper that the practitioners can give to their clients? Because remember, these guys want to be compliant. They're not trying to be obstinate. They're trying to actually comply with your requirements. So if Eskom from their side can just make it a little bit easier to do that, I think that would go a long way to win some goodwill from everyone, from the practitioners and the customers. So Laura, could I ask that you maybe engage with your colleagues at Eskom and see if you can maybe compile something like that? I know that it probably doesn't exist yet, but maybe you can look into compiling some kind of guide that we can spread to the practitioners, who then can give it to their clients.
That point has been noted, and I have recorded it, and I'll respond in our next meeting. Thanks.
Okay, great. That is wonderful. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Carl, for your question. Let's go on. We have 10 minutes before the end of this meeting, so let's see how much we can cover. So the next question is, may I request a short presentation on my side? There are documents that I need to share on screen with wiring diagrams. I need to clarify for what a hybrid system is. Okay, so this would probably have been one directly for Dr. Beukes. So Progress, I'm going to ask that you maybe send your question directly to Laura and Sipho, and then they could potentially connect you to the right people to help you with your query. So I've posted their email addresses on your question. You can just contact them directly. All right, let's look at Jade. Okay, so Jade says there is some confusion regarding the registration. Eskom has in our previous meeting stipulated that the SSEG registration is compulsory as per NASHA, and that there is a 12-month grace period to comply. When is this grace period over? That's the first question. When is the grace period over? And then the second question is that there are statements from the local municipalities that have been made that we do not fall under these requirements as stipulated in our previous meetings. So which statement is true and correct? Does Eskom supersede the local municipalities, and would the customer need to then apply to both Eskom and the municipality? Or would Eskom requirements override all other requirements?
Okay, Marisha, Laura. And this question arose out, the first question that was asked arose out of our second session. So in terms of the grace period, the cutoff date is the 31st of March, 2026. And that will then fall into at the end of our new financial year, because we're currently closing our old financial year, and our new financial year starts on the 1st of April. So the grace period is up until the 31st of March, 2026. Marisha, I know at previous sessions we did clarify in terms of the registration of the SSEGs, if the customer is in a municipality supply area, they will then comply with the guidelines of the municipality. And if a customer falls within the Eskom supply, they will then comply with the Eskom. And we are following in terms of the guide. We have stipulated in previous meetings in terms of the reason for the registration and the guidelines that we've utilized through NERSA. So I hope I've clarified. Thank you.
Yeah, that clarifies that. All right, let's move on. Jade, if you still have a question, you're welcome to repost in the box, but I think we've answered that now. All right, Richard is asking if an off-grid system requires a declaration. Is there a pre-approved process to follow, or can the system just be installed and declared afterwards?
I'll hand that question over to Sipho.
Yeah, ideally, you need to first inquire before the installation is done. But yeah, in most of the time we find that the customer, they install first and then inquire. But yeah, either way, it doesn't matter. You just need to inquire and then we will guide you in terms of the process.
Okay.
Marisha, I think it would be best, a guideline. As Sipho said, sometimes customers install and then are educated on the SSEG process later. But both ways, yes, let's register your SSEG, but it's preferable that you register prior to the installation. Thanks.
Okay, so that's for the registration, and then for the declaration, you would prefer the same thing, right? So if it's just a declaration, you would prefer them to reach out before the installation is done.
Correct.
Okay, great. Right, I'm just going to skip those comments from Zanal with the ASAN's posts for now. Okay, so we have a question that says, engineer registered with ECA may not be registered with the DOEL, and does this mean that the engineer will also issue COC? I don't know if that's really a question for Eskom, but maybe Sipho, you could clarify from your side.
Yeah, it's up to the customer whom he wants to use for the COC. But as for the EGI report and the engineering letter, we indicated that it must be an engineer registered with EXA. As for the COC, it is up to the customer.
Yeah, so that's not really dependent on Eskom. That's just to be compliant with all of the laws and regulations that's normally in place for the installation of such a system. Okay, let's see the next question. In the case of a bulk electricity supply example, a complex or a townhouse, where there is only one account for the entire complex, but an individual within the complex has solar and his internal managed meter, how do we as engineers register this solar user, but he actually does not have his individual Eskom account?
Firstly, I'm not sure if the complex will allow such. I stay in a very same setup, but you make an application, the normal application, the process is the same. But where I'm staying, you are not allowed to because it's a sectional title.
So Sipho, what number do they then just use? Do they just use the complex's account number? Because
it will be the complex account number. The process will be the same.
okay, so they just submit that application using the complexes.
Marisha,
Yes.
Maybe just to add, as Sipho highlighted, some might be sectional titles related in terms of the complex, and others might not. So if it is, it would then be preferred, if, and from experience with dealing with other estates, that the application actually comes through the estate rather than individual. So that's a question you can then post to us directly. You can then send it to SIPO and myself, so we can then unpack, in terms of the rules governing either your estate or the complex, so that we can then execute in line with that in terms of, and provide feedback that's in line with your estate or your complex agreements. Thanks.
All right. Okay, so I'm just going to cover one more question that I see from Sean. He's asking, I've heard of a list of only certain inverters being approved by Eskom. Is this true or not? And can we have this list? So I'm sure that you've heard the answer to this question during the course of this meeting, but Eskom does not have a specific list of inverters that they recommend. You only need to comply with the standards of NRS and everything that is legally applicable. And there is a list of approved inverters from the City of Cape Town. So that might be the list that you are referring to. City of Cape Town has such a list, and you can a simple Google search will give you access to that list. So it is now 2:30. We have spent an hour and a half discussing all of the intricacies of these applications. Sipho, did you want to say something? Or Laura? I think Laura's.
No,
Yes.
nothing.
Yeah, it's myself. I just thought before we conclude for today, I know there was one of the questions that might be still key for this audience that were raised at the second session regarding an online application for the SSEGs. I've received confirmation, as I indicated, that we are busy preparing some new products and services as Eskom. And yes, one of the services that we will be extending and supporting the SSEGs is an online application. We had aimed to have it launched by the end of March, but the plan has now moved out to the first quarter of the new financial year. So I thought that would be key. Thank you for feedback.
Okay. All right, so the gist of it, you can contact Laura and Sipho directly with your applications. You do send it to the normal channels within your municipal area, but Laura and Sipho is there if you want to add them to your application, especially applications that have been submitted and you're not getting any response and you're getting a bit antsy. You are welcome to include Sipho in that, and he is committed to reviewing those applications and assigning a number or a practitioner to help you. Yeah, and then let's conclude this meeting. Let's all go have a wonderful rest of our Wednesday afternoons. I'm going to leave the chat open for a little while longer. If you want to post a question that we didn't get to, I will draw all of these questions and we will send it to Eskom, and they have committed to giving us answers. So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and I really hope that you have a great Wednesday.